Hi, it's Nadia here and welcome to the second of my earring making workshop. Today we'll be looking at earring wires and I'm going to show you three different styles again. A simple style, a classic style and a statement style. The list for the tools I'll be using today is in the box below. Make sure that the only jewellery wire that you use to make earrings is 0.8 or 20 gauge and that it's proper jewellery wire so you don't have an allergic reaction. As for the plating, you can just choose any plating colour that you like. So let's get going. Let's start off by looking at this very simple pair of earring wires. You'll need two pieces of wire, about 15 centimeters long. I've roughly cut mine. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that both my lengths of wire are the same and that one of my sides is flush. And I'm going to be making my pairs together. It's the best way to make sure that they're completely matching. I'm going to grab my round nose pliers and I'm going to place them at the top because I want my loop to be small and just the tiniest bit of overhang on my wire. And I'm going to make my loop. So you can just twist the wire around till it touches. Next up, I'm going to decide how long I want my wires to be. So I think I'm going to put my little bend just here. I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and make a little bend. So now I have my basic shape. And I'm just going to hammer it to keep it. With my block and my benching hammer, I'm going to lightly hammer the earring on both sides. But I only do it just slightly below the bend because I don't want this part of the earring to be flat, but I do want it to keep its shape, and as it's quite long, you really need to hammer it. So do it for both earrings. Next up, I'm going to decide how long I want the tails to be. I'm just going to put my earrings together again so that the pair is matching. And I think it's quite nice to have a long tail, so I'm going to cut them together. So they've got a nice long tail. And all you've got left to do is file the ends. If you've got a proper file, just file it around a few times. Remember, files only work one way, so always file to one side and then just turn it around to make sure you filed everywhere. If you don't have a proper file, you can always use a nail file. It does the same thing, it just takes a bit longer. All you need to do now is accessorize your ear wires, and you do this by opening the little loop that you made at the end. And putting your beads on it. So I've just made some little beads with a little charm at the end. So I open it. And now I close it. Remember to always open your loops forwards and backwards. I'm just going to put the second one on. And that's it. Simple earrings. Ready in under 5 minutes. Next, I'm going to show you how to make classic earring wires, or some people call them French earring wires, but I have to say these are also very, very simple. To start off, I've cut 2 pieces of wire. These should be about 10 centimeters long, and I've cut them freehand, so I'm just going to make sure that they are the same length and that one of my ends is flush. So with my flush cutters, I'm just going to give it a snip. Now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to place both wires together close to the top and just with the slightest bit of overhang, and I'm going to, you can push your wire around just until it touches the metal and you have a perfect loop. With your loops together, take your bail making pliers, and we're going to use the widest part of the bail making pliers now. So I'm going to put my loops in together so they're just touching the end of my pliers. And what I'm going to do now is push the wire at the back around my bail to make the round loop at the top. So just push it round. And then I'm just going to give it a little bend, which is what gives it the classic shape. So when I take it out, I will have a perfectly matching pair. And before I separate them, I'm just going to cut the ends. And now I have a perfectly matching pair of traditional wires. You can cut the little tails longer or shorter as you like them, but we're going to flatten them now quickly so that we can finish them and harden them. Again, take your block and your hammer and gently hammer around one side and then the other. But don't hammer your little tail because you don't want it to be flat. And if your little hoop opens a bit, your little ring at the bottom, you'll need to open it anyway to put your bead on so you can close it properly afterwards. Now I have 2 perfectly matching French wires. I'm going to finish the ends by filing them so they're not sharp. And all you have to do now is open your little hoops, slip on a bead and close them. The final pair I'm going to show you is a statement pair of earring wires, and of course you can make them in different sizes. So obviously the bigger, more of a statement, but I'll start off with a fairly small hoop and show you how to make them. I've cut 2 pieces of wire. They're roughly 12 centimeters long, and again I'm just going to cut one end so it's flush and so both my wires are the same size. The difference with these earrings is that you have to make them separately, not together like the previous ones. You'll need a cylindrical shape to make it on. If you don't have a mandrel, you can just use a tube. I'm using a mascara tube because it's a nice size and it's easy to use. So I'm going to take the wire, more or less in the middle, and I'm going to wrap it round my shape. Make sure that your wires cross over and that you've retained the nice circular shape. And with your wire still on your cylindrical shape, you're going to take your flat nose pliers and you're going to make a bend just where they cross over, so you have a 90-degree angle. I'm just going to take it off the tube so that you can see it more clearly. Now I'm going to take the other wire and bend it around the first one. Again, I'm going to take it off just so you can see what I've done. And I want to make sure that this little bend is as small as possible. So I'm going to take my bent nose pliers, if you've got them, otherwise just use your flat nose pliers, and just give that little bend, that little loop that you made, a squeeze just to bring it in tighter. Now I'm going to wrap this wire around the upright one 3 times. So 3 twists to make a little coil. And now I'm going to trim off the little end. And tuck it in so it's not sharp. And if you feel your coil isn't tight enough, you can always just bring it together ever so gently. Bent nose pliers are best for this. And now I'm going to hammer it. At this stage, I'm just going to hammer the bottom part to keep it in shape. Now you can hammer it lightly or you can flatten it quite a lot, but I also like to hammer the coil because I think it looks nicer when it's flat. So you'll have to repeat this exactly the same for your second earring. I've got both of my bottom loops ready. I just need to do the shaping at the top. It's important to note that in these earrings there is a very definite front and a back. The back is where your coil ends, so it's nice to finish them off with a flush, neat side in the front. So check them before you do the loops at the top. I'm going to try and shape them together as best as I can so that the loops at the top are the same, the little hoops. So I've put them with the correct side facing up inside my bail making pliers, and I'm going to be using the bottom largest bail again. I'm just going to wrap the top of the earring round it then make a tiny little bend at the bottom. One of my ends is slightly longer than the other, so I'm just going to trim it. And I'm going to dab the little loop with my hammer just so it retains the shape. Now file the little ends so they're not sharp. Now you can accessorize these hoops, and I've used some chain offcuts to accessorize mine, but it's important to say that unlike the other two earring wires that we made, you're going to have to place your beads or your chains onto this hoop with a jump ring. You can't actually open the big ring here because it has a coil at the top. Let's have a look at all the lovely earrings that you've learned to make in these past two sessions. So the hoop ones and today's ear wires. So now there's no excuse not to make a lot of lovely earrings. And I've got one more workshop coming up, which will be all architectural shaped earrings. Make sure you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss it, and enjoy being creative and making earrings.